was the last time you really felt the country was on the right track? It's probably been a while. Our politicians are not being straight with us. Each party offers painless solutions that protect special interests and reward millionaire lobbyists. At a time when America is going to choose our next president, let's begin a serious discussion about how best to proceed as a nation.
Every politician in the crowded field of contenders for 2016 is going to tell you they have all the answers. But who is really going to keep the country safe, and how could they accomplish what others have missed so often? Who's really going to unleash the American dream of economic prosperity? Who's really going to reform Obamacare, the tax code, safeguard America from all threats, foreign, domestic? And who's really listening to the American people? Our next guest swears he has answers. He isn't full of the usual stuff from inside the Beltway, and he is listening. He's the former IRS commissioner during the George W. and Reagan years, and now his hat's in the presidential ring. Let's welcome Mark Everson to MidPoint. Candidate Everson, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. And you've got this right, Ed. That's a long list of items that we've got to get after.
Well, there's the long list, but let's start right there because, let's be honest, people in America right now don't trust politicians. They think probably more than ever before that politicians are liars and thieves, and all they want to do is get elected. How do you then stand out?
Well, I think that's just the point. I've been in over 30 states around the country the last couple of years, and that's exactly the message that I get. People want new policy answers, and they're willing to look past their traditional political leanings, I think, as long as the solutions are not crafted for political or self-serving purposes. So I think the electorate's very unsettled, and I think that does present a possibility for a non-traditional candidate like myself.
But isn't everything?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Isn't everything, though, political? One way or another, whether you're doing it inside D.C., whether you're in the boardroom, whether you're trying to negotiate whether or not your kid can have the Happy Meal or not, everything is political in life, isn't it?
Yeah, but the difference is that the folks who are senators or governors who've been in the system for decades, they've got their interest groups that are in their corner, and they've got the people who've been funding their campaigns. So they're not going to look outside of their traditional spaces, if you will, and that breeds all the cynicism that you're speaking about. I'm speaking to you from Iowa, Ed, and we've got an active campaign going here. I was up in a place called Mason City last night speaking to their central committee. Those folks, they don't think the election can be purchased. So they ask good, tough questions. We talked about bringing back the draft to get our sense of American shared sacrifice together. We talked about getting the politics out of the system. I've said I'm only going to serve a single term in office. That's because I think too much of the decision-making in the Oval Office becomes about the re-election effort. And these themes are resonating because people, the typical Americans, they've had it with the regular system, if you will.
All right, Mark, here we go. A couple of minutes that we have left here. I'm going to throw a couple of issues at you right now because this is what the American people want to know. Hillary Clinton says she will have a pathway to citizenship. She says it is an essential part of any overhaul in Congress, and you get the feeling that she's going to stand on this. Where do you stand on a citizenship pathway?
I support comprehensive immigration reform, which means changing our legal system so that we bring in people going forward who can contribute economically. I support getting tougher on the borders, and that includes not just fences or a wall, it includes how we handle visas for people coming in. And I support interior enforcement, which means checking to make sure somebody is eligible to work before you give them a job. When you've done that and you've tightened up future illegal immigration, yes, I believe in the citizenship path because we have 11 million people here. They're not going to go anywhere, Ed. And I'm very concerned about radical Islam and the disintegration of Europe. I've lived in Turkey. I've lived in France. And unless we re-establish our tradition of assimilation, have these folks learn English, and then get them all in pulling for America, I worry we could go down that same path. So I happen to agree that we need to deal with that. We need all these folks to come in, not the criminals. We don't want to take care of them. Get rid of them, of course. But if you're a contributing member, I want to see you become a citizen. Yes, I do.
There are some people out there running for the GOP nomination who say that on their very first day of office, they will abolish the Internal Revenue Service. Come on, Mark, let's be honest here. Even you got to look us in the eye because people look at you and say, wait a minute, he's an IRS guy. But there's no way to abolish the IRS. So then how do you fix it so that people aren't getting taxed into oblivion?
Well, who better to tackle that than somebody who's been a businessman most of his career and then ran the IRS? And you're right. I put together a bold tax reform proposal where we can take 150 million people off the income tax rolls entirely, put in a consumption tax on goods and services that everybody will pay, and that's at a rate of about 13% is what the model suggests. And then what you can do is you can leave in the upper income people, but at a lower income tax rate. And you can lower the corporate rate as well so that our businesses can grow and be competitive overseas. If you do this, you bring in about the same amount of money, Ed, and you leave the distribution of burden in place. The rich pay about as much as they pay now. The middle pays as much as they pay now.
My goodness, Mark, you know this is never going to work because, quite frankly, it has common sense involved in it, but that's another story. We could talk forever. I got about 30 seconds left. Who's behind you? Who's backing you?
I think just the common man is behind me because the people I talk to, they're all fed up with it. It's just what you said. So I've been very encouraged as I've traveled Iowa and other things. We're getting going here. We've got an office. We're going to hit all 99 counties. And the folks in Iowa here, they don't think the election can be bought. So that's the approach I'm taking. And I think it goes to the vital and true nature of the American democracy.
We are going to find out as we head towards 2016. It's always good to hear people who have a vision out there who want to see if they can change America for the better. Mark Everson, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. As I told people, I know that you've got your taxes paid, so there's no problem with that. I look forward to talking to you again, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care. He was the first American to fly in space and the 5th human being to walk on the moon. It is the story of one man who at one time was told he'd never get back into space again. It's a part of looking back, and it's next right here on MidPoint.